So the next track is from Viktor Balla, and it's called, I believe, "Rest." And I'll give a quick shout out to Victor in general. Uh, he's really been pulling people into the group and getting the group to grow. So for that, we all want to just thank you. I've noticed that you're really repping the group for us, and we appreciate that because we put so much into this. So we love seeing that people are enjoying it and growing. So thank you, Victor. So on that note, this is Res, and I will go ahead and play it. This one looks, I can tell by the waveform, is a bit softer. So we will probably have to turn up the level a little bit on your end. So just forewarning, because yeah, it looks pretty low. All right, here we go.
Egy emlék kopottan sétál kiüresedett utcáin. Csak én ismerem, mint múló idegen monológ. Leszünk utcai állókép. Keskeny réstáton léptei alatt várja, hogy belebújjam. Leszünk utcai állókép. Időt álló, más semmi nincsen. Időt álló, semmi nincsen. Leszünk utcai állókép. Időt álló, álló idő, más semmi nincsen. Időt álló, álló idő, más semmi nincsen. Időt álló, más semmi nincsen. Időt álló, semmi nincsen. Időt álló, más semmi nincsen. Időt álló, más semmi nincsen. Időt álló.
All right. So what I have learned today is that we've got some amazing musicians and artists in this group. Like, holy crap! So I could not have asked for better selections. Like, what an interesting collection of music from the group. This has been really cool. So I'll just start with that. That was really freaking cool.
Yeah, agreed. Agreed. Totally agreed. Musically, it's fantastic. But from a mixed perspective, from my point of view, it's how can I explain this? It sounds like a triangle, as in like the mono information, really really good. Yeah, everything's there. But then when you go to the sides, like drops down in volume rather than being linear with the center information, so it still fills your ears. So you're sort of like you're going from like here, and then as it goes out to the sides, like it drops down to here. That's what it sounds like to me. So everything that's in the stereo, I'd bring it up so it's at the same level as the mono information.
On that, and I'll just give one little thing on that. I noticed that the snare, which is more centered, is a little thinner and lower than when the toms come in. They're gorgeous. Those toms, like boom, boom. I'm like, wow, those are great. But the snare doesn't have the same intensity, and part of that, could just be the miking, or maybe using a compressor to fatten it a little bit and to bring it up. But yeah, I did notice that
down a bit more as well.
what was that?
I said I'd pan those toms out a bit more.
Yeah, they were definitely out a little bit, but yeah, that was the main thing. Just to piggyback off what you were saying, is that snare was not at the same caliber as the toms.
Yeah,
that gated reverb on that snare was lovely, though. A little nod to the 80s in there. I really like that sound.
Yeah,
I give props to that trumpet player.
Great song. Yeah, that trumpet was great. I felt the solo could use a bit more to make it special. Maybe just make it a little bit bigger, slightly louder, maybe a little grittier even, or like a bigger reverb or a little more delay, just something to make it a bit more special. It was perfect when the vocals came back and it was like sitting slightly behind the vocals. I loved it for that. But when it was doing the solo, it just needed to come up front a little bit more.
I'm just glad the solo was there. I was very surprised. I wasn't anticipating it at all.
I'm always down for a surprise trumpet solo.
Heck yeah.
Yeah, my other main comment about this is, like, I love the groove, I love the song, but just when the guitar came in at the beginning, right before the main vocal, it just felt like it came in on a weird spot, like kind of like an upstrum, or like just something not confident when it came in. Like, it didn't come in saying, here I am, I'm meant to be here. It kind of came in like, oh, is this where I come in? Which is something that, like, when I was studying music, like, we always talked about, like, when you're coming in, you come in strong. You tell people, yes, I am meant to be here, because that keeps the song moving forward. If you come in scared, people hear it, and it doesn't give the audience confidence. It doesn't give, a good impression of your playing, of your music. So just, yeah, you got to fix that. I don't know if, like, maybe just the first slight bit of the transient was cut off in editing, or the compressor is just a little bit too fast, or maybe the take just wasn't that great, but the guitar needs to come in confident at the beginning of the song.
Yeah, and with that in mind, while we're talking about the guitar, there's like a nice big wide acoustic guitar sound in there. Then when the choruses came in, it was the same nice big wide acoustic guitar sound. Maybe like stick another track in there for the choruses. This is just, again, personal preference and what I'd be inclined to do. In the choruses, chuck in another track of like a guitar through like slightly higher gain on an amp or something, just for a little bit of grit and a bit more power in the choruses, and sort of change that dynamic. And you can drop from chorus to verse, and I'm sure you understand what I'm saying there.
Yep, and I felt that it was a little bit of that with multiple elements that you were talking about, Dan, where the guitar felt a little awkward coming in. The beginning of the track kind of steps in, like it adds something, and then another thing gets added, and another thing gets added, and another thing gets added, and it felt kind of awkward to me getting up there. But then when it all came together and started moving, I'm like, this feels like a cohesive, built piece together. And so I think I agree with you in that there's something that can be done to make it just smoother and as it ramps up. I also had the same kind of thought with the guitars. One thing, and this is a production / tracking thing, is so much of the track is organic in the feel, like every aspect of it. But the acoustic guitars are recorded through the pickup, and I think if you had mic'd the guitar up instead of recording it through the acoustic pickup, it would have suited the song just a little better, a little smoother. It wouldn't have been as noticeable with that sharp strumming attack. I could be completely wrong, but I just think from a production choice, I would have rather mic'd up that acoustic than using the built-in pickup because I think you lost an element of that package or organicness. At least that's what it came out to my ears. Um, and then yeah, the widening or the layering that Tim is mentioning. One thing you can do if you don't have layers is play with the width. So if you've got that wide stereo, maybe narrow it down before it gets to the choruses, and then widen it out when it gets more exciting. If you don't have other layers, ideally I like to work with layers. I just put another thing under there for the exciting part, and then ease it back out. Um, from the bass and the kick, I absolutely loved it. I wouldn't change a thing. That kick drum and that bass guitar was doing it for me the entire time. So
Oh man, I was gonna
I
say the bass was a little bit too nosy. So I'm
well,
glad that you liked it. I guess that's again a preference thing.
I am a bass player and I like aggressive bass. So take everything I say about bass guitar with a grain of salt because literally probably every musician I've ever worked with has said, dude, your bass is great, but it's too goddamn loud. So,
Less
you know,
triangle, more bass.
but
I mean, yeah, I love aggressive bass. I just feel like it was centered around like a weird, like nasally, nosy frequency, and I would have rather moved that up or down slightly.
Yep. So yeah, I just felt it was unique and fit the track. But again, it's all preference. 5 different mix engineers and you get 5 different mixes. So
a tiny little thing as well that I made a note on, and again, it's in the editing and the mixing bit. Is at the end of vocal phrases, you can hear a little bit of mouth noise. So just edit that up a little bit tighter because that was poking out the mix at me, and I could hear you doing that.
Yeah, that's a great point, and that kind of leads into one of my favorite tricks with vocals is when you're automating them is the ends of phrases, ends of words, you just ride them up like half a dB to a dB just to keep them a little more present towards the end of the phrase, and it just adds a little bit of a layer of polish. But if you have those little mouth noises, those little breaths, those little weird little things at the end that you haven't edited out, it makes it super obvious. So it's important to clean up your vocal tracks and get rid of that because once you start automating and pushing it up, once you start compressing, once you send it to mastering and get it and it gets limited and louder and louder and louder, that stuff becomes more and more and more obvious. So yeah.
yep, especially the hotter the mics you use. Like a lot of people like using those TLMs and things like that push that ASMR range of the mouth noises just through the roof. So if you're gonna go for those crispy vocals or really hot mics like that are accentuated on the highs, get really comfortable with editing because you're gonna need to mess with it. Not necessarily even a lot. I use Melodyne and it works amazingly, but you will have to give the vocals some love.
Yeah, and I like all that stuff as well. Out hearing the breath intake of breath, but like I said, if you compress it too much, it ends up being, and then the vocal sounds really quiet.
Yeah, I
don't mind breaths at all.
Like the breaths. It's the little like clicks and stuff at the end of the phrases that you don't always want.
It's that bit, yeah. It's as we were saying earlier about things making it sound more human. Leaving breaths in is like fantastic for that. And like you say, the intake of breath before jumping into the chorus or something. Yeah, brilliant.
I always prefer to
like Dan says,
clip gain it down rather than remove it entirely.
Yeah, because like I said, otherwise it's like really fucking loud, and then the vocal comes down like really tiny, and you think it's like.
Yeah, it's a real fine line. I'm usually somewhere in the middle. Like I don't like it when things are edited completely silent. That's why even when I use gates generally on instruments, I don't make them gate to infinity. I usually just make them drop by 20 dB or something, just to ease some of the life in there. But like with the mouth noises and the breaths, it's a fine line between making it sound weird and amazing. And so what I try to do is once I've made a decision on, especially something like breaths, like how much of the breath are you going to leave in there, I try to bounce it and then go do something that's distracting and listen to it kind of in the background. And if it distracts me, I know that I did something bad. Like if I'm just around the house doing something and I hear that, I'm like, what's up with that vocal? Then I'm like, oh, I screwed that up. Let's pull back the processing because that's my rule of thumb. If it's distracting, you screwed up. unless it's really supposed to be distracting. But in general, most mixing is not about pulling somebody out of the moment. At least it's not supposed to be.
Just while we're talking about vocals, there was the backing vocal in that track as well. To my mind, it sounded as like level in quality and volume as the lead vocal. It wasn't doing the job as a backing vocal, and as a result, the two parts were treading on each other's toes quite a bit. Again, just personal preference. I'd make that backing vocal thinner and more reverby or something, just to like push it behind the lead vocal, so it's not sort of trying to take up the same space at the same time. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, I mean, I sort of took it to be more of a duet rather than like a lead vocal and a backing vocal, because it was like a male female thing. And maybe like if we understood the lyrics, like that would shed some light on it as well. But another thing is like if you have your lead vocal center and you're going to have a duet voice come in under it or beside it, why not just automate the pan slightly right, slightly left on those two, and then they can have a bit of space to themselves.
Only thing I have is, was that Spanish for the track?
I thought it sounded sort of Russian or somewhere around that part of the world.
Hang on, I'm listening to it again.
Yeah, I'm not the person to ask on that one.
I'm just a lover of languages.
So if it helps, Victor is in the Bucharest time zone.
Okay, so
Love to see great music come out of everywhere, man.
yeah, I mean that's great. I love that we have international musicians and stuff, and like also stunned by the quality of the last 3 songs we listened to. Like this has been amazing.
Yeah, I get so much out of these mixed reviews. Like it's great to provide feedback to people, but I just love hearing all of this different stuff that I normally wouldn't be that exposed to. The last thing I'll say, and there's always a last thing with me. The one more last thing I've got is that the vocals had that really big doubled kind of effect to them, and I loved most of it. It's another one of the things where I think subtlety matters. So maybe in the beginning, make them less oomphy, like pull back some of the doubling on them just a little bit. I'm not saying to pull it so like it's thin, but just pull it back so you have somewhere to go, so that when those choruses do hit, you ease it out a little bit more, make the doubling more present, and then pull it back a little. So just a little push and pull, I think goes a long way. Again, very subtle. I'm talking minutia here, but those little things really make a track for me. I go, oh wow, that was really interesting how everything went up and everything pulled down just a little bit in different ways.
I'd just like to add as well, you're saying about using gates and that on the vocal. Try using expanders. They're not quite as aggressive as gates, and it will smooth it in a little bit more. And out, obviously.
And then for anybody that knows Wayne, set up your top-down mixing.
Coming soon.
And right after that will be my series on bottom-up mixing.
Did we go a whole hour without talking about side chaining?
No, we went 54 minutes and 20 seconds when you brought it up.
Yo. But to be fair, different techniques for different styles. All of these songs were not an aggressive electronic style where you see, that side chaining the kick as a very common aggressive pumping sound. Just doesn't apply in these. Now, could you still use creative, compression? Sure, you can do anything you want. But yeah, different genres have different techniques and different interesting stuff.